Wow, that was such an impressive intro. It sounds much cooler than I actually am. But so, anyways, thanks. It's really great to be here. How do I get my presentation up there? Oh, there. Got it. Cool. Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history of Etsy and a bit about marketing at Etsy and what we think about as marketing at Etsy, at least historically. I'll preface that by saying that I really don't think of myself as a marketing person. I've received no formal training in marketing, and as I trained myself, became more and more skeptical of what most people thought of as marketing. So, it's a little bit intimidating to actually talk to a room full of people who know a lot more than you do about this stuff, but I'm happy to share my experiences, and I hope we'll have a lot of time for questions, because I'm sure you'll have some. We'll get at what you actually want to hear, not what I'm going to blab about. But okay, so this is the apartment where I lived with a guy named Rob Kalin, and Rob Kalin was the founder of Etsy. This is in a neighborhood called Fort Greene, Brooklyn. And at the time, I was in a band. Rob was at his 5th college. Yeah, that's Rob. We actually had a screen printing business together too. And so basically he and everyone we knew were trying to make a living just making stuff. At this point, Rob was making these handmade wooden computers and not having a lot of luck selling them. But they were really cool. I think it's actually funny. I think about a lot of artists on Etsy, and they make these incredible things, and they're so passionate about the things that they make that they don't think about the time it takes and the skill that it takes to make these things. They'll be like, "That'll be $5. I don't care. I just want to make it." It's like, gotta raise your prices. Actually, it's kind of a funny story. So we were living in that apartment building, and our landlord had a little office across the street, and he had a restaurant in Manhattan called Acme Underground, and it's like a Cajun restaurant that wasn't very good. So no offense if I think he's sold it since then, but in very typical Rob fashion, he went over to our landlord's office to say that he didn't have enough money for rent. So I'm sure all of you who've been in the arts can sympathize with that. And there was a proposal for a website on our landlord's desk for the Acme restaurant. It was exactly twice the amount that Rob owed in rent. And Rob's like, "I'll do it for half that." And actually, so this is how Rob got into the web world from these computers. And so he met those two guys, the one on the left and the one in the center, who were students at NYU where he was, because he wanted to animate flames for the Acme restaurant website. So, and that was like, I guess, the height of technology at the time, like, woo! But it's an important piece in the story because those guys became the first programmers of Etsy. So Rob connected with them on a bulletin board. They said, "Hey, let's make this website for the restaurant." They made one other one together, and the next website they made was Etsy. So that was in 2005. So this is what Etsy looked like right when it launched. They spent about 3 months working on it. I remember Rob would also spend a lot of that time writing Heim's papers. This is, one of the engineers. So he's like, "You just code, I'll write your papers for school." This isn't being recorded, right? It's funny. I once gave a talk at the Borough Hall in Brooklyn, and I was talking about some of Etsy's early fundraising, and there's some kind of dubious things there. Nothing untoward, but I started talking, and then I was like, "Wait a minute." And they're like, "What was that guy's name again?" I was like, "I don't remember." It was, So anyway, so this is what the website looked like when it first launched back in 2005. As I mentioned, I was playing in a band at the time, and Rob was like, "Why don't you come do marketing for this?" And I was like, "Well, I don't really know anything about marketing." And he's like, "You'll be perfect." So this is kind of all these images, by the way, I've just from Etsy. And this is kind of how I thought about marketing. It's like this sad salesman. But, sorry. Wrong crowd. So as I mentioned, I was in a band, and it's funny, I prepared a lot of this on the plane last night, and I did Google my band's name, and that picture came up, but I never remember that happening, so. It's true. So anyways, I was in a band, and this is relevant, actually, because it's exactly how I approached marketing at Etsy, and I realized, actually, that being in a band and doing marketing isn't really that different, right? It's all marketing. And what we did when we were a band is we went town to town. We built up local audiences. We connected with our community there. We worked on trying to get PR for the band and spread the word. So it's all the same stuff. So I did just that. This is the first promo item I ever made for Etsy. I screen printed it myself. It's a kid throwing a rock at a factory. That was a pretty good message. This is how we did it. It was like very, very DIY. We hand printed our own promotional goods. I traveled town by town. That's me in the middle. This is from a few years after the beginning, but it was always funny because I was constantly traveling and just trying to, engage with the community at Etsy. And I'd send my wife photos, and it was always me and like 75 women. I was like, having a great time. That's in Helsinki, Finland. It's funny. Actually, one time I went to Australia, and there was, as I try to do when I go travel around, is to try to host some sort of Etsy event or meet with the community while I'm there. And so we organized this Etsy party in Sydney, and it was supposed to be like a party. And so I went to this bar, and it was me and 75 women. And I remember there was all these kind of like frat boys going up the stairs to the next level of this club, and it was just like me dancing with 75 women. Like and they were like, how did that guy get in there? So anyways, we did a lot of this kind of stuff, just like it was a band. We went out, we pounded the pavement, and I think what was important is that we weren't business people. We weren't coming at this from the point of view of like, what's the ROI on that visit to this town? It was really more, well, one, like we don't know what we're doing, so maybe you could help us, tell us what you need. Two, we were creative people too, and these were the people that we wanted to be with, and we wanted to build the site not just for these people, but with them. And we figured the best way. It was, I remember when we raised money and I actually had a marketing budget, I was like, I guess I could buy some ads, but it seemed so uncreative to me. It seemed like there's so much more powerful stuff we could do with this money. So I'll talk about this in a second. So we created, I'll go back to this one. We created grants for the artists on Etsy to go to craft fairs and buy their booths, or to help them advertise their own work. We always have believed that, we're a lot more successful when we give our members the means and the desire to get business themselves, right? And we can leverage this whole platform of artists. It's always going to be more effective. So that was our approach. So we also leveraged technologies that were out there. This is misleading. It seems like this was, if this is like from 2005, it's a lie. We definitely didn't have 1,400 Etsy communities organizing around the world then. But what we did is, that same approach of just kind of going town to town, we started to use free technologies. This is meetup.com. We organized something called Meetup Everywhere, and we have a day where Etsy members host Etsy events all around the world. That's a slide from that. We also began to, as we grow, build physical spaces where we could bring our community in. So I remember, this is the Etsy Labs in Berlin. But the first Etsy office we ever had was in this kind of industrial building in downtown Brooklyn. And I remember at this point Etsy had 6 employees, and Rob was out in Minnesota, and I was to find the office for Etsy, and my only criteria was had to be able to walk there from my house. So it's like, it tells a lot about what about getting people from Manhattan? We never imagined anyone would come from Manhattan and work with us. So So anyways, I found this space, and I was going to take a little corner that was probably like twice the size of this stage. And I was like, I can't imagine ever needing more space than that. And Rob's like, get the whole floor. And I was like, that's crazy. So we got this whole floor of this office. I remember for the first couple months, I was the only person working there. We didn't even have a high-speed connection, and I had a phone line and like a 200-foot phone cable. And I would like walk to this huge empty space, and each time I'd sit in a different place and kind of be like, the sun's nice here. And that's how I picked the best spot in the office when it got filled up later. But with the rest of the space, actually, we built the first Etsy Labs, which was just a community space. And we opened it up to our members to come in and make things. We took the screen printing press that we had in our screen printing shop and set that up there. We got a letterpress. We got sewing machines. And for a while, we actually just had it open, like you could come whenever. And then as the company started to grow, there'd be people trying to do customer support, and someone would be like banging on a jewelry bench. And we're like, all right, we got to kind of separate this a little bit. But we still have Etsy Labs, and now we have speaker series. We have nights where we teach people how to make things. We have business workshops. So we use our office space to keep the community connected to what we do. I started something called Teams in 2006. Now we have about 8,350 teams around the world, about 90,000 people who are active on those teams. Teams are groups of Etsy sellers. In fact, the group that's selling upstairs right now, those are all vendors from the PDX Etsy team. So also, please go support them. They have really wonderful stuff up there. So this was just one of the ways that we could kind of help, let's build that community around what we were doing. And teams typically get together to share business practices and figure out how they can market together, to team up purchasing supplies, or even in some cases now, they're really doing a lot of social good in their communities too. So it's been really exciting to see how this has grown. You know, the original idea was kind of taken from the band, right? You have local street teams who'd like throw up flyers when you go to a town. It's the same kind of thing. You know, one thing that we've also done really from the beginning has been very transparent with our community. We really do think that our community are our partners in this. I mean, we are nothing without the Etsy sellers and the Etsy buyers too, of course. But you know, I really think of them as our partners in this, right? Whatever they decide to make is what's sold on Etsy. We don't sell anything ourselves. So every month we publish all of our stats, all of our financials. We share everything with our community. And we try to really be accessible to answer questions about that stuff too. We've now started putting on these big events for our community. This was the first one this one was in Berlin. I was living there for a couple of years getting Etsy's international operations up and running. But you know, everywhere we go, it's really about how do we actually engage the people around our brand, because we feel like people are what make Etsy. That's the special sauce. We also do a lot now with our neighbors and with our communities. So we very much believe that we've got multiple stakeholders in the business. It's our employees, our community of buyers and sellers, our customers, our neighbors, and the planet. And we really believe that if any one of those people, any one of those stakeholders is to fail, we all fail. So this is actually an Etsy employee biking compost from the office to a community garden. But we do a lot to engage, not just with our customers, but also with the neighborhoods where we have offices. We hosted something called Hacker School. We set up grants for women engineers and actually increased the number of women applying to learn how to code by 700% by creating the grants. So, thanks. Well, it's, you know, it sounds very noble, but it's also, we also hired great people from the thing. So it worked as a really great recruiting channel for us too. But my point is, it's, you know, these things, if you calculated them just as like marketing expenses, you know, it would be very hard to justify them. But I think this is really about, you know, building a brand and building something that's remarkable and something that people want to remark to others about. So let's just look at Etsy today. I figured just to give you guys a size of the business. So this is what the site looks like as of I think about 7 p.m. yesterday on the plane. And it hasn't changed a lot. I mean, it has changed a lot in terms of just the sophistication of the technology and everything like that, but it's still the same idea. We've got about 35 million members now, 1 million small businesses on Etsy, 89% of which are run by women. We transact in 200 countries. More than 60 million people come every month to the site, and there's 18 million handmade vintage and art supplies on Etsy. Here's a little picture of our financial growth. So you can see back in 2005, those screen printed posters didn't do too much. We sold about $200,000 worth of goods. Last year, around 895 million. And this year will be well over $1 billion. So it's going in the right direction. But I think what's really important to remember, one, that's not what we make. I hope you guys realize that. Because sometimes it's like I will give a presentation somewhere and it'll be like, Etsy had made $900 million last year, those capitalist pigs. We take 3.5% from each sale. So this is the marketplace volume of all of our sellers on the site. And I think that's really what's important because, again, it's about people, right? And it's not about actually the dollar signs. That's $900 million, or this year whatever it will be, dollars of economic impact in people's lives. And that's very much how we think about the company. This was something that was actually a really cool little surprise. We have a photo booth up at Etsy in the labs. And we found this sticking in the photo tray one day. And it's just some seller I've never met her. Actually, it says, "True story, Etsy changed my life." And that actually, as the company's grown, the way we think about the company has changed a lot. When we started out, Rob was looking for a place to sell his handmade wooden computers. He's like, eBay is not great because I actually care about what I'm selling, and I don't want to just like throw it up there with someone's used tube socks or whatever. So when he looked around and saw all these people who were making things, he's like, "Oh, I'll make a site for everyone to sell the things that they make." That was it. But as we started to have real impact in people's lives, and we started getting turned on to people like E.F. Schumacher and Bill McKibben, and lots of people were writing about the new economic movement. And we started to see that we were having real impact in people's lives. The mission of the company evolved a lot. So this is where we are today. Reimagine commerce in ways that build a more fulfilling and lasting world. And that is our mission statement, and I think also kind of a vision statement. To me, the reimagine commerce is what we do, right? Reimagine commerce is about empowering a very large number of small things rather than a small number of very large things. It's about breaking down the barriers to doing business to almost zero marginal cost to empower all of these small creative businesses. And it's also about the kind of company that we run. The vision that we're trying to create is this, excuse me. Oh no, there it is. This lasting and fulfilling world. And lasting is really specifically, I think, an ecological message. There's no economy without ecology. And I think it's very important for any business. We've got to figure that out if we want to be in business at all. And fulfilling is, what I always think about as, building a more joyful and connected life for people. A lot of times I get asked, how many people make a living on Etsy? And, everyone wants to just break it down into financial terms. But I like the idea more of how many people are making a life on Etsy. To me, making a life is about, maybe getting to spend a little bit more time with your kids, or, not spending your whole day in some soul-crushing job, or doing something that you love, like making handmade wooden computers. That to me is more fulfilling than just money. So anyways, I'm very driven by this personal mission. I've made it first. That's a Freudian slip. This is the company's mission, but I guess it's actually also kind of a personal mission. And so, as I was trying to think about what I could talk to you guys about, I started thinking about, how so much of marketing is really kind of personal for me, or what I think about. Meaning tapping into what makes it personal and important for you. And so on the plane last night, I came up with 7 tips for marketers. So these are and the images don't necessarily correspond. I kind of tried to do it, but I was pulling stuff off of Etsy, and eventually my battery died, and I finished this morning. So don't read too much into the pictures. Okay, so my first one is realize your higher purpose, and I was thinking a lot about this for the arts in particular, and hoping that you all realize that it's not your job or your job isn't really just selling tickets or admittance to things. You're actually enabling something that's really important for communities, and really important for revitalizing downtowns, and really important for fulfilling people's lives. People need the arts, and you help enable that. I was also thinking a lot about artists and the people who dance in your theaters or hang their paintings in your galleries or whatever it may be. And there's a writer named Charles Eisenstein who I really recommend. He wrote a book called Sacred Economics. And he once said something to me, which is the greatest thing you can do for someone is give them an opportunity to share their gifts. And I think that's what you do. So don't just think of yourselves as selling tickets. Realize that your work is important. This next one, creepy people. Sorry, it's probably someone from Portland who made these. I think they're really cool. Think interdependently. This is something I kind of touched on before, but your customers and your backers aren't the only people that matter. Your employees matter, your coworkers matter, your neighbors matter, your customers matter, the artists who work in your space matter. And so I really do feel that there's an interdependence between all of these stakeholders in your enterprise. And you should always maximize benefit and minimize harm for all of them, and you'll benefit too. The better nature does, the better you do. The better your neighborhood does, the better you do. The better your customers do, the better you do. So don't just look out for numero uno. I thought this picture looked like someone flashing, but I didn't think about that at the time. Stay open. This is, I think, a really important one too. There's this concept called Shoshin in Buddhism. It's like open mind, or beginner's mind, rather. And I see a lot of people, as Etsy's grown and you get more and more people coming into the company, they come with all this baggage from wherever they were before, and like, no, this is how you do things, and this is the way to do it. And I think that actually leads to kind of a lack of innovation and creativity. So be open to consider all the possibilities. There's no real one right answer for anything. Be dauntless. I think this is a really important one. I like that picture too. I think that, what holds most people back in an organization is fear, afraid to actually do business in kind of beautiful and unusual ways because everyone will be telling you, like, you just can't do it that way, or you're scared you're going to get fired, or you're scared that, well, what if it doesn't work? And so you retreat back to like the safest thing, and I think that's doesn't make for really creative marketing. Do remarkable work. I think I kind of touched on this. Your whole job is to make people, right, talk about whatever it is you're working on, like your gallery or your theater, whatever. So, push yourself to do great things and do unusual things and do beautiful things, and people will talk about it and they'll come, and you don't even have to spend money. This I actually found, that's me. This was actually from a live video award show we did at Etsy. We did a musical tribute at the end. And I was thinking about how funny this is. There's our VP of finance in there, and like, you know, all of these kind of high-ranking people at Etsy. And this is one of Etsy's values, actually. Keep it real always. And it's kind of the cheesiest, vaguest one, but I think it's actually the most important one. And this is like really about like listen to your gut, you know. And you kind of know when you're not keeping it real, right? If you can avoid that, you know, if you rather, when you realize that, do something different. The few times, you know, at work, I'm sure there's probably more, you know, where I felt like this doesn't feel right and I still do it, I always regret it. So I think don't be afraid to have a sense of humor and to do unusual things. My last one, maybe I don't know, hope this doesn't offend anyone. Don't confuse Facebook for a community. This is, yeah, well, half the people were offended. No, I was thinking about this on the plane, and you know, I was thinking about marketing, and there's like, okay, how do we leverage social media for all these things? And I was thinking about, especially with the arts, well, this is really about real interaction with real people and community coming together, and that's not what Facebook is. Facebook is for companies like us, nothing against advertising and marketing, but it's really a platform built to deliver targeted advertising at people. It's not really about building real community. So you have an opportunity to build real community, I think, where you are already. So with that, thank you very much.